What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the reveal of the number 24 team in my 2021 NFL Power Rankings with a deep dive into the Cincinnati Bengals. Before we get started, a quick reminder to please do hit that like button down below. Really helps support the channel and the series. Also, if you enjoy the deep dive, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss any uploads as we count down to number 1 in the series. And without further ado, let's get into the Bengals here. So Zac Taylor, heading into year 3, was kind of infamously hired for being Sean McVay's friend. And a lot of people questioned this hire from the get-go. And honestly, it is a total shit or get off the pot season for Zac Taylor. I don't think we're ready to say that he's a bad head coach, but he has shown us almost nothing to give us any confidence. And this is a do-or-die season for Zac Taylor. He's got to be at the tops of your hot seat power rankings. And if things don't go well here, do we start to wonder, do they reunite Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase now with Joe Brady and just bring back the LSU championship offense? It's definitely going to be in the minds of many Bengals fans and just NFL fans around. But it was a busy offseason for the Bengals as they try to give Zac Taylor a roster worth winning here. So let's recap their offseason, the additions and departures. A bit of a youth movement here in Cincinnati, to be honest, as they say goodbye to a lot of household names, guys that have been around here for a long time. Of course, Gio Bernard, AJ Green, Geno Atkins, even Carlos Dunlap, who they traded last year. Those guys feels like they've been a part of this team forever. So, getting younger at those positions and then also kind of getting cheaper with some of their best players as well as Carl Lawson. They look to replace him with Trey Hendrickson in free agency, even though that wasn't really cheaper. They, I think, just wanted the health profile of Trey Hendrickson as opposed to Carl Lawson, who's got some injury concerns. And then William Jackson as well, getting replaced by Chidobe Awuzie, definitely just getting cheaper at that cornerback position. And then upgrading at right tackle with Bobby Hart for Riley Reiff. So definitely some moving pieces and some question marks that will arise as far as what's an upgrade, what's a downgrade, who's going to be stepping up, whether it's a newly brought in free agent or someone that's been on the roster or a rookie. But at the same time, like everywhere they lost someone, they're also kind of replacing it. So a nice kind of trade-off type of offseason for the Bengals. And also, I threw Trey Waynes in there as a key addition. He was a big free agent signing in 2020. Actually hasn't played a snap for this team. Missed all of last season with an injury. So in a way, getting upgraded at corner there with Trey Waynes. But let's start breaking down this roster now. We're going to go through position by position and talk about how each group stacks up against the rest of the league. And I mentioned that many people were expecting the Bengals to actually be revealed already before we got to this number 24 team. So the reason that I am a little bit higher on this Bengals team is my confidence in Joe Burrow, who, believe it or not, is actually going to rank 9th in the league for me. I know, crazy out there take right there, but hear me out. So yes, I understand that the production wasn't really there to warrant a top 10 ranking here for Joe Burrow, but the tape was, and the traits are absolutely there. So let's talk about traits and not stats, because that's the way I look at football. And Joe Burrow, when he got drafted, I compared him to Aaron Rodgers from the waist down and Tom Brady from the waist up. So let me explain that. The Tom Brady side first, from the waist up, that's going to be the mental side of the game in two different ways. Number one, he has the same leadership qualities that Tom Brady has. And not just that, it's the all or nothing commitment to football. Like nothing matters to this kid other than football, it seems. I'm sure he's got other interests and loved ones and all that stuff, but you get the point. Like he is all in on football, and that's going to show up as far as all of the development is concerned. Keep in mind, Tom Brady was never like a strong-armed quarterback or a really good deep ball thrower coming into the league. He was able to work at those things, and you're seeing already with Joe Burrow in his rehab and people talking about how the arm strength is getting better. Those are things that he is going to continue to develop and improve, and having that elite, even higher than one percentile or 99th percentile work ethic type of thing, that is a big part of it with Joe Burrow. But it also shows up on the field in his game in the same way to Tom Brady in that he has such a detailed understanding of the passing game. It was on his scouting report coming out of LSU, but it showed up in those 10 games that he played for the Bengals last year. Just processing galore, boom, 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 progression 1, 2, 3, mistake-free football, understanding what coverages he's getting, how to throw with leverage away from defenders. He was the most pro-ready quarterback I've ever seen. His processing on the field, absurd for a young quarterback at 24 years old. I can actually say with relatively high confidence that I think Joe Burrow is one of the 5 to 10 smartest, best processing quarterbacks in the entire NFL already. I know it's a small sample size, but I do believe that in my heart of hearts. So that's a big thing here with Joe Burrow. But the other reason he's Tom Brady from the waist up is he does not have a rocket arm like Aaron Rodgers. It's why he's the comp is not straight up Aaron Rodgers. That is something that may or may not hold him back throughout his career, is that arm talent. So that's going to be a legitimate question. There's going to be people in the comments saying Joe Burrow's got a noodle arm, he's never going to be a top 10 quarterback. I strongly disagree, but I do think that is a legitimate criticism of Joe Burrow. And then the Aaron Rodgers from the waist down side of this, I mean, you just talk about the pocket presence, the play extension, the ability to make throws on the move. He has that quick twitch athleticism. And to me, again, already, I feel very good saying Joe Burrow has, there's a lot of good quarterbacks with good pocket presence. So I don't know if I'll say top 10, but I do think he's in the top echelon of guys capable of manipulating the pocket, sensing pressure while keeping his eyes downfield, and having that ability to extend plays. So from a traits-based perspective, there's just so much to like about Joe Burrow and very little not to like. We talked about the arm talent being a weakness for him, but I also, again, think that's something he can develop slightly. We've seen it with Tom Brady. Dak Prescott developed his arm talent a little bit. It's something that, especially someone with a big frame like Joe Burrow has, can be worked on. But the deep ball as well is a very legitimate criticism, and if he repeats the poor deep ball accuracy that he showed last season, this is going to backfire on me, and he's not going to be a top 10 quarterback. He's going to be probably closer to 16 to 20. But again, I believe in him to work on that. And now getting Jamar Chase in there, who was such a big part of his success throwing the ball deep at literally a historic clip as far as deep ball placement and accuracy at LSU. We know it's in there. He just has to get it back out, and I think he will this season. So that's a big part of this projection, being a top 10 quarterback. Yes, there's some little things to work on, but I have so much confidence in what I've seen from Joe Burrow, watching back his tape from his 2020 season with the Bengals. But to wrap this up, I don't know if the Bengals are going to win a ton of games. We're going to get into that, and that's always a part of these conversations, but I really, in my mind, will not be surprised if, as a football conglomerate, the consensus opinion is that Joe Burrow ends this season as a top 8 quarterback in the NFL, if he's considered the best quarterback in the AFC North, because I think, and that's going to be tough. There's some good quarterbacks in this division, but that is how highly I think about Joe Burrow, and it also comes down to the Bengals putting the right opportunities around him, whether it's giving him defensive support, the right pass protection, and that's all stuff we're going to break down. But I just have a lot of confidence in Joe Burrow, if you couldn't tell already. Behind him, no one really interesting. Brandon Allen stepped in and had a couple big moments. I think he could be kind of a career quality backup type, good athlete, and can do some fun things, but obviously your season's over if you get to Brandon Allen, just as we saw last year, and then Kyle Shurmur, Pat Shurmur's son. Again, ranking 9th at the quarterback position. It's going to be one of my more bold takes that comes out of the deep dives this offseason, and I'm excited to see it play out. I think as long as he works on that deep ball, I feel pretty good about this prediction. But next we have the running back grade here with Joe Mixon leading the charge. I honestly believe Joe Mixon is underrated. I think if he could just stay healthy, which is a legitimate criticism of him, but if he could stay healthy and then be on a team that was actually good at running the football, look at Minnesota, Cleveland, Tennessee, the Saints. I have no reason to believe that Joe Mixon in a different situation wouldn't be in that same conversation with Cook and Chubb and Derrick Henry even. So I love Joe Mixon. If I were to build a alpha 3-down running back in a lab, he's like the ideal running back, honestly. He's got straight line speed. He's got the size and power. He has vision. He takes care of the football. He breaks arm tackles. He can make you miss. He catches the ball well out of the backfield. There's nothing he can't do other than transcend terrible run blocking, which they've had here, and no running back can do that. And he gets injured. So those are your knocks on Joe Mixon, but I do genuinely believe he's underrated. The running back grade for this team is actually going to be 9th, and they have some decent depth as well. You've got kind of that complementary power back in Samaje Perine, who stepped up and had a nice late career resurgence here for the Bengals. I think he's still the single-game NCAA rushing record, by the way, from Oklahoma. You got Travion Williams, who had extremely limited sample size last year, but showed some nice ability to make guys miss and hit holes hard, and you might have something there as an RB3. But they also bring in Chris Evans in the draft, an interesting prospect who honestly looked like maybe a day 2 running back with explosiveness and was really productive when he got his opportunities at Michigan, but missed his 2019 season for, I believe, an academic suspension. And then just had a bit of a falling out with the Michigan coaches. They had other running backs they wanted to use with more youth, but was still really explosive when he was on the field in 2020 for Michigan. So maybe getting removed from that academic environment, we see a different Chris Evans. He is, in theory, a really good scheme fit here with that wide zone offense. Think about the speed of a Aaron Jones or a Dalvin Cook in this system. Could have something there. And then Puka Williams as well was one of my guys out of Kansas, and they get him as an undrafted pickup. Does not have the size to be a feature back. And again, you got a bunch of dudes ahead of him, so I don't know if we're going to see a lot of Puka Williams, but similar to Chris Evans, with the speed, I think he's in a perfect system to have success. He was higher on my draft board than Chris Evans, though I liked both those players. So I like those additions. You really run 5 deep. I would think they keep all 5 of those. And then you've got oversized Jaquez Patrick out of Florida State. Not worth mentioning, but again, 9th at running back. And then the receiving grade here, which is going to rank 10th in the league, which means I have heavy expectations for Jamar Chase to take over as that alpha wide receiver in year 1. And for one, we've seen a lot of rookie receivers come in and hit the ground running, but in Jamar's case, not only is he a special prospect, but he comes in with that chemistry with Joe Burrow, which gives me a ton of confidence that he is going to be, I don't know, a top 20 receiver in the NFL in his rookie season. I really don't think that is outlandish to say. Obviously, we need to see it happen on the field, but if gun to my head, bet is Jamar Chase going to be a top 20 receiver this year? I would say yes. I do think he will be. So that's kind of the outlook for him. Just big bodied dude that is, his top traits are going to be run after catch ability, where he's going to be one of the 4 or 5 best run after catch guys in the league. Compare him to Deebo Samuel, AJ Brown type of stuff, speed train kind of runner, guy you just can't tackle in space. But the contested catch ability, elite. Some of the comps you see out there are going to be AJ Brown, oversized Antonio Brown. My comp was Allen Robinson, who is Deebo Samuel after the catch, is my comparison for Jamar Chase. So lots of fun comps for Jamar Chase. This dude is just such a beast. He was the 2nd best player in this draft class, in my opinion, pound for pound, or just straight up. So they go with Jamar Chase to replace the number 1 profile that they had in AJ Green, and I do think they get that. So heavy expectations for Jamar Chase as well, which probably comes back to my optimism on Joe Burrow. And then, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, really nice diversity of skill sets. So 2 wide receiver sets, we'll see if it's Tyler Boyd out there or T. Higgins. It's probably going to be a bit of a split. But in 3 wide receiver sets, this is a nice setup because T. Higgins is your classic perimeter kind of just your perimeter possession receiver. A guy you throw jump balls to, can run some comebacks, mix in some other stuff, but I never really wanted him to be my alpha number 1 guy. I did like T. Higgins a lot coming out. It was actually a good draft call of mine. I thought T. Higgins was wildly underrated in that pre-draft process by a lot of people, and he did a lot of proving people wrong in his rookie season, but not a burner per se, and doesn't certainly have the alpha upside of a Jamar Chase, for example. So he steps in as a number 2, kind of comparable to me to Mike Williams for the Chargers in that role. So feel good about that on the perimeter. And then Tyler Boyd as that big-bodied slot guy, kind of a poor man's Michael Thomas, Cooper Kupp type if you want the Sean McVay role for Tyler Boyd. And it's just a really nice 1-2-3 with size and not so much speed. They have some speed in there with like Jamar Chase, but more just like physical dominance. Like these guys are big and fast. Like they're fast for their size. So a big fan of that trio. And then you have Auden Tate, he's just a worse version of T. Higgins, is that big-bodied, stiffer perimeter guy. And then they've got, Trent Taylor, slot guy, Stanley Morgan, another possession receiver, Michael Thomas, maybe more of just a special teamer, or Mike Thomas, rather. The depth here I'm not crazy about, but that top three is really nice. I think they're going to be in the conversation for the best wide receiver trio in the NFL, depending on how good Joe Burrow is and how good Jamar Chase is. But then the tight end group, okay, not crazy about this group. Drew Sample has emerged as an outstanding blocking tight end, which is kind of what he was coming out, but just hasn't been able to establish himself as a receiving threat. He is an athlete. You hope that he can kind of gain some of those instincts, but at this stage in his career, are you really expecting that? Probably not. If it happens, great. Otherwise, he's just a run specialist type. Then you got CJ Uzomah, career number 2 tight end with some athleticism, fine. And then a bit of a competition here between Mason Schreck, Thaddeus Moss, and Pro Wells. Maybe Mitchell Wilcox gets into that group as well, but an interesting group with Mason Schreck, who's gotten some time. A 7th-round pick in 2017 is stuck around, so decent third guy there. But Thaddeus Moss and Pro Wells, definitely the upside guys on this entire tight end depth chart. So Thaddeus Moss just has a hard time staying healthy, but to me was actually, before it was revealed how bad his injury woes really are, was actually my number 1 tight end in the 2020 draft. Ended up getting knocked down pretty far, and those injury woes have surfaced in the NFL as he just hasn't been able to stick anywhere. But gonna get an opportunity to show that he's healthy here. And if he is, he's a great run blocker. He's got some speed. He's got a chemistry with Joe Burrow. And there's really no reason Thaddeus Moss can't be the number 1 tight end here. It's just a matter of him staying healthy, honestly. And then Pro Wells, a fascinating TCU prospect who it kind of fits that basketball type of tight end, the jump ball guy who's just really stocky and can box dudes out. Needs to develop as a run blocker if he's going to play that kind of possession blocking tight end. We call them smash and grab tight ends on this channel. Smash for the run blocking, grab for the possession type of receiving skills. Just not a high-end athlete, not a separator, but did have some nice catches at TCU and declared as a true junior. So I thought he was a draftable prospect. I thought that was a nice pickup. So between him and Thaddeus Moss, I think you might have something if they can develop those guys. Wilcox did have some athleticism coming out of South Florida, but probably nothing there. And then O'Grady, not really worth mentioning. And then the receiving running backs, Joe Mixon, just very sure-handed and I would say Alvin Kamara-esque as far as his ability to flip upfield quickly, have the instincts to know which angles guys are coming at when you turn around on a screen or a check down and that kind of stuff. Just really good at making that first guy miss, getting upfield. Not quite the route runner of a Kamara or obviously McCaffrey or all that stuff. So I wouldn't say he's an elite receiving running back, but certainly more than good. Samaje Perine, just, again, not like a shifty dude, not a great route runner, but he can turn upfield and do some things as a receiver. Travion Williams might have some upside as a scat back, but really keeping my eye here on Chris Evans and Puka Williams, who I thought really projected well as third down running backs. Both guys I thought were draftable. Chris Evans, especially at the Senior Bowl, was super explosive, getting away from linebackers in the one-on-ones and just looked really smooth in his routes. And I think there might be something there in Chris Evans. Was productive in the receiving game at Michigan as well. Puka Williams, same thing, just undersized. So I actually really like Evans and Puka Williams. How much do they see the field with Joe Mixon there? That's obviously a question, but in the event of injury, you could do worse than Perine as the kind of first down back and then mix in Evans and Puka Williams if Evans and Puka Williams kind of developed there. So again, the receiving grade coming in 10th in the league, very optimistic projection for the passing game talent on this team. Though you can't overlook that passing game talent also includes the pass protection, just as we saw last year for this Bengals team. Terrible pass protection, and their passing game was far from great. So I still don't feel good about this offensive line. In fact, they rank 31st in the league. I thought they could have done more over the offseason. Not so much the Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase debate. I was very 50-50 on that. I probably would have drafted Penei Sewell here, but I could have been convinced either way. So it's not even so much about that, but I've heard a lot of Bengals fans tell me that they're fine at right tackle with Riley Reiff coming in here. I mean, look, I saw Riley Reiff get bull rushed by Randy Gregory, who I've never seen win a bull rush against anybody. I saw the Minnesota Vikings cut Riley Reiff. He's a literal definition of a Band-Aid here. It's an upgrade from Bobby Hart, who you had last year, but man, it is not a significant upgrade, I can tell you that much. And then you have Jonah Williams at left tackle, who's the one guy on this offensive line that I can say with any confidence is still going to be on this team in 2 years. So I do like Jonah Williams. I think in year 3, having missed that rookie season, we do see a pretty good year from Jonah Williams. So I feel good there. But Jackson Carman at left guard, okay, we'll see how this works out. He is a conversion project, was a left tackle at Clemson. Now, I did have him as a guard on my draft board, and I like how he projects into the NFL at that position, but does have really stiff feet, a young guy. I think he'll get there, and I would say he probably will be here in 2 or 3 years, but needs to prove it. Trey Hopkins at center, kind of a, Band-Aid style center. He's starting caliber. It's better than nothing. Choppier feet and inconsistent pass protector, a little bit smaller as well. Just, kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type of center. He's fine. Quinton Spain, same thing, kind of an aging veteran that hasn't been good for a couple of years. Going to be a competition there at right guard, I think, between him and Xavier Su'a-Filo. Hopefully can emerge with a low-end starting veteran at right guard there. But man, are any of these guys going to be star offensive linemen? No, maybe Jonah Williams, but unlikely. And you're not even convinced that you're going to get 5 quality starters, which is really what the offensive line is about, is filling out 1 through 5, not necessarily having a couple stars. You want, you're only strong as your weakest link, so to speak, and I project at least 1 weak link on this offensive line, whether it's Carman or Spain or Hopkins or Reiff. None of these guys, I think, are all that exciting. The one pick I really did like, however, was Dante Smith in the 4th round out of ECU. I really like grooming him for a year at right tackle. I think he does have a lot of upside, but an undersized dude coming out of a low level of competition, probably a guy you want to groom for a year, which does give you some outlook for the future as far as upgrading Riley Reiff. Now, that's a 4th round pick that you need to see develop, but that was one of my favorite picks that this team made, just as far as the plan there. Great scheme fit as well, an excellent athlete who, assuming Zach Taylor wants to get back to the wide zone offense with those Shanahan-McVay influences, I think he perfectly fits that setup. You have some other guys they've drafted around here. At tackle, you've got Adeniji, who's I don't really have much to add on him. He played last year and was bad. It's basically what I expect from him. Fred Johnson, Isaiah Prince, not expecting a later career emergence from them after being around for a couple years. We mentioned Xavier Su'a-Filo, who does give you some versatility and depth, but just not upside. Michael Jordan, Bengals fans probably hoping he gets cut here. He's the reason Joe Burrow got injured last year. He was a 4th round pick in 2019, but my God, you can make a case. This is a bit of a tangent, but someone in a Twitch stream I was doing said that an overlooked discussion when you talk about the worst player in a sport is how much does that player hurt their team? And you can make a case that Michael Jordan hurt their team more than any player in the entire NFL last year. Not only was he quite possibly the worst guard in the NFL, but literally was the reason that Joe Burrow got hurt. So you can make a case. Michael Jordan was the worst player in the NFL in 2020, and I kind of like that argument. Keaton Sutherland, okay, whatever. And then Billy Price, 1st round bust, seems to get worse every year. And then they do draft Trey Hill in the 6th round. you're going to want to keep an eye on him. Was a really good athlete, declared as a true junior, but really poor testing numbers and just questions about like how much he is going to develop at the next level. So we'll see. He's got upside. I liked that pick. It was good value in the 6th round. I thought he was, like a 4th round guy. Definitely high upside at center. Could be a long-term replacement to Trey Hopkins. But yeah, it's just not a good offensive line. I think it's going to be in the conversation for the worst in the NFL. I don't think they did quite enough to, put this to be in a position where they can really help them do what they want to do. I think they got some Band-Aids in here, which is better than doing nothing. Like, I think it's a better offensive line than last year, but they have a long way to go as well before they're a good offensive line. So it is what it is. They ranked 31st. Probably going to be the biggest thing holding back this offense, honestly. But that said, the offense is actually going to rank 17th. Comes back to my optimism with Joe Burrow and this receiving group. You get a top 10 quarterback and top 10 receivers, that's going to be a nice foundation for your offense. And you hope the offensive line can be better than last year in that it's not, a train wreck and they can just get in people's way and allow Burrow to execute the offense. And I think you're going to be left with a pretty solid offense when all is said and done. Now, obviously, a big part of that equation is Zach Taylor. What kind of an offensive coach, what kind of a head coach is he going to be this year? They ranked 24th for me. It's obviously a system that works. We mentioned for the Jets in the last episode how pretty much everyone that's implemented the Shanahan offense has made it work right away. And, Zach Taylor's kind of the one coach that's not true for, but the offensive line's been so bad that you can make some excuses. Joe Burrow got hurt, so I don't think he's dumb. I think it's a system that works. He knows it very well, and in year 3, I don't think he's the worst offensive coach in the league, but just hasn't given us reason to be too excited about him either. The scheme is going to be that Shanahan offense. I think Zach Taylor was forced to get a little bit outside of those roots over the last couple of years, but you still see those influences, and I think that in his heart of hearts, he wants to get back to the basics of the Shanahan offense, running those outside zones, the play action, and integrating all that stuff. Now, is that the best scheme for Joe Burrow? Is that making the most of his high strengths as far as processing coverages and going 1 to 2 to 3? You could make a strong case that no, it's not, because Joe Burrow, this is a tangent again, but the Shanahan offense is designed to simplify the offense for the quarterback and let the coordinator scheme up receivers. And I don't think Joe Burrow needs that necessarily. He is, at this point, kind of a rare quarterback in that he's so good at finding the open receiver and reading coverages that it's an interesting blend there as far as coach and scheme fit. And it's also maybe why he got away from those Shanahan influences a little bit last year. But at the same time, that's not Zach Taylor's comfort zone. So I think that's worth noting, just the kind of clash of scheme fit and scheme. Very fascinating here for the Bengals as we wrap up the offense. And now that takes us onto the defensive side of the ball, where we start with the run defense. And this was abysmal, would be putting it lightly. It was a terrible run defense last year. Really difficult to watch this team try to stop the run. But Bengals fans will be happy to hear that I actually think it's going to be a much better run defense this year. Just looking at the interior group alone, massive improvements, quite literally, bringing in some really effective big bodies. Part of that is getting DJ Reader back. Was a big free agent signing for this team last year. Only played 5 games, and he's one of the premier nose tackles in the league, and I think that loss really hurt them. I think they were leaning on him to eat those blocks up front, but not just him. They do bring in Larry Ogunjobi, who I do technically list as the number 2 defensive tackle because he brings much more as a pass rusher, and I do think he gets the majority of number 2 reps there next to Reader. But it's going to be a rotation with Tyler Shelvin, who was an outstanding 4th-round pick. I had a 2nd or 3rd-round grade on Shelvin, one of the best nose tackles to come out in recent years. Dude's just massive. He does everything. There's just nothing to really add to his game. I feel like one of the safer players in this class. It just plays with discipline, strength, gets leverage, can, see where the ball's going. Like just a stud run defender that you can get here in the 4th round. Just a great bargain to improve the run defense. Josh Tupou as well opted out last year. Completely unknown player, but played about 500 snaps for the Bengals in 2019. and was an outstanding run defender in doing so. Another guy with size. So you put in DJ Reader, who missed 11 games last year, Tyler Shelvin, and Josh Tupou. That's how you improve your run defense overnight. They have Mike Daniels there as well, Renell Wren, just kind of some probably later down rotational pieces. But then you look at the edge group. I do think going from Trey Hendrickson to Carl Lawson is interesting. Lawson, a guy that didn't always play on early downs, not a terrible run defender, but someone they wanted to kind of put on that pitch count because of his injury questions. So maybe a little more consistency from Trey Hendrickson. That said, Hendrickson's always been kind of a rotational later down pass rusher type. I think there's some run defense in there that we haven't really seen from Trey Hendrickson because he just hasn't gotten that playing time. But you look at his size profile at 270 pounds, you got to think the Bengals see him as more of a 3-down player than Carl Lawson and someone that can take some steps up in run defense. So we will monitor that. And then you have Sam Hubbard, who's an excellent, all-around defensive end. Better run defender than a pass rusher, but good at both, I would say. Also, some really nice draft picks on the edge. Joseph Asai and Cam Sample. I mentioned that Dante Smith was one of my favorite mid-round picks for this team, but I'm now being reminded how much I liked the later rounds of this team's draft because you bring in Tyler Shelvin, Joseph Asai, and Cam Sample. That legitimately, in my opinion, has a chance to overhaul this defensive line over the course of the next year or two. Having lost Lawson and Dunlap and Atkins, you need to replenish that talent, and that's just a great group of players to do so. You still could use some interior rushing ability that you're not getting in Shelvin, but Asai and Sample, we'll definitely talk more about them as pass rushers, but Sample is a big-bodied dude, played the run well. I think he'll be a part of that earlier down rotation. Asai, maybe not so much, more of a kind of a hybrid outside linebacker edge type at Texas, making that full defensive end conversion. Maybe a little bit of a slower start from Asai, in my opinion. But, man, those were excellent values. I had second-round grades on both those players, and they got Asai in the third and Sample in the fourth. So outstanding drafting, in my opinion, by the Bengals. Khalid Kareem, bigger-bodied, good rotational run defender. Hubert, they drafted in the 7th round. Really was not a fan of him. I had an undrafted grade on him. Really undersized dude. Don't really see what he does well, in my opinion. But they make up for it by picking up Darius Hodge. Again, all guys we'll talk about when we get to the pass rush in just a second. I don't see Hodge playing much in run defense. And then even Freedom Akinmoladun at the very bottom there. We'll see if he makes the team, but another guy that can get in for a run defense rotation. So a lot of kind of bigger bodied options. I like what they have on the edge for the run defense as well. The linebackers, we'll continue to discuss them when we get to the linebacker grade. It's not ideal. I think Logan Wilson looks much better in his second season. Really liked him coming out of Wyoming. I think he's going to be a good Mike linebacker for them and thump a little bit, thump with a little more confidence. Let's just say that. Getting up to speed at that also difficult linebacker position. So optimistic for Logan Wilson, though really wasn't consistent as a run defender. Made some splash plays, but was also out of position quite a lot. Jermaine Pratt, kind of a do-or-die season for him. Just hasn't shown that development, but a player I did like coming out, and maybe in another year in the system, though the athletic traits can really flourish here. He's not bad in coverage, but as a run defender, that's where he has never really been a great player. My comp for him coming out was Nigel Bradham, who also was never a great run defender. So, we'll talk more about him in coverage. But Akeem Davis Gaither, really just a safety playing linebacker, kind of that weak side, bandit type of linebacker. Not going to be a help in run defense. After him, Marcus Bailey, Jordan Evans, just, whatever. These linebackers aren't, making or breaking the run defense, I would say. They're just kind of there, and I don't think any of these guys are star run defenders. But I do really like the front four and the rotation, the depth that they have with that group. And I think it's going to be a massive upgrade. I think it's going to be a middle-of-the-road run defense, quite literally tied for 15th in the league, and a massive upgrade from what they had last year. But now the pass rush here is much worse. They're going to rank 29th for pass rush, and this is where I have my biggest concerns for this defense. And the problem here is I also don't see a lot of upside either. other than, I would say, Sais and Sample being like stunningly good mid-round picks there, which I do like those picks, but it's tough to expect that from them in a rookie season. But the starting lineup, they bring in Trey Hendrickson here, who, good player, was a really nice third pass rusher for the Saints, but now you're bringing him in here to be your number one. Okay, a little bit of an overpay in my opinion, like $15 million a year. Now, they can get out of it if he is kind of a flop here. They can get rid of him after, I think, next year for basically nothing. So, nice structure on the contract, but I never would have moved on from Carl Lawson for Hendrickson. Maybe they're just terrified of Lawson's injuries creeping up and cutting his career short. But, man, that was a head-scratcher for me. And like I said, he's now this team's number one, and I don't feel great about that. I think he can be a quality complementary number two edge rusher, but you don't have that alpha on the other side. And now teams can focus on Trey Hendrickson and then ask any of these other guys to win one-on-ones, and it's just not going to work. Sam Hubbard is a high motor player with some get-off and length and strength. Like I said, he's a good pass rusher, but I don't really love him as a full-time starter. Sam Hubbard should probably be what Trey Hendrickson was for the Saints, as a guy that rotates in as your third guy. I am certainly excited to see what Sais and Sample can do as rookies. Sample was possibly my guy in this draft. I thought he was the most underrated player. Coming out of Tulane, he has get-off and length and power. He has a legitimate bull rush that I think he can use to win on day one. He also can step inside as a 3 technique and help out this interior pass rush that is not good as well. So I have lofty expectations for Cam Sample. He's one of my dudes, and if this pass rush exceeds 29th and even gets up into like the 22nd group or so, I would predict that Cam Sample would be the reason for that. But again, as a 4th round rookie, it's also difficult to see him getting a ton of playing time and getting the opportunities and growth to be that guy. So future expectations for Cam Sample, very high. I think Sais next to him, who is more of an explosive dude, more of a speedy player. My comp for Sais was actually Clay Matthews. I did like him better in a 3-4 system. Now, also keep in mind this front can be a little more multiple. They could easily put Sais out there as an edge outside linebacker and figure out a way to use him. So, yeah, the upside for me with Sais and Sample is nice, but I don't expect we see much of those guys as rookies. So, a little give and take there. Certainly not expecting much from Khalid Kareem. He's just kind of a rotational run defender, in my opinion. Wyatt Hubert, again, to me, short arms, undersized, just doesn't have a lot of traits that I think project well to the next level. Darius Hodge was an interesting pickup. I definitely thought he was better than Wyatt Hubert. We'll see if he makes the team. Just kind of a high motor, again, kind of undersized guy that fits well as a 3-4 more type of edge fit, but has some finesse to his game and maybe could make this team and become a part of the rotation. But this group's also getting hurt by the interior rush. You have DJ Reader, who's fine. He's kind of, I would say, good as a pass rusher for a typical nose tackle. He actually has some get-off and power and ability to push the pocket. He's not full-on Kenny Clark or Akeem Hicks, but you can live with him as a number 2 interior rusher. The problem is they don't have a guy next to him that's more of that number 1 guy. Larry Ogunjobi is just wildly inconsistent. They bring him in. He has big moments, and he's got some get-off and technique with his arms and quickness with his legs and some power. He just can do a little bit of everything, but kind of a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type of pass-rushing defensive tackle. I think he's fine, but you're not excited about him. And then for the most part, your interior depth is more like nose tackle types. You've got Tyler Shelvin, who's not going to be a pass rusher. He's going to be kind of that Danny Shelton block-eating dude. Josh Tupou, same thing. Big, powerful nose tackle type. The pass rushers on the inside that you would look at after Reader and Ogunjobi, other than maybe Cam Sample getting in there, where he dominated at the Senior Bowl, by the way, kind of lining up over the guards. But Mike Daniels is still here, seems to be healthy and in shape. That could be something to keep an eye on, like was in his prime one of the premier interior rushers in the entire league. Just hasn't been that guy for years. almost impossible to expect him at his age to even stay healthy, but to get back to that level. But he can still get in there and wreck some stuff from time to time. And then Renell Wren, can they get anything from him? Was an explosive 4th-round pick in 2019, but the development just hasn't been there for him. Khalil McKenzie, I think he keeps bouncing between guard and tackle. Clearly a good athlete that some coaches want to do something with, but hard to expect anything there. So yeah, 29th for the pass rush grade. I really don't see a ton of upside, barring Osai and Sample getting a ton of reps that we aren't really expecting. So certainly a group that's going to make things difficult on this defense. Anytime you're towards the bottom as far as ability to pressure the quarterback, it just puts more pressure on everybody else, whether it's the play caller, the coverage units, these linebackers now that we're going to talk about. So they end up ranking 27th for linebackers here. It's a group with like a good versatility of skill sets. I think this is kind of like the perfect archetype for a base 4-3 defense. You have more of your true middle linebacker in Logan Wilson, who's not a bad athlete. I think he has coverage upside to be a good middle linebacker. You got Jermaine Pratt, who we talked about as that Nigel Bradham comp, who hasn't been in the league for a while, but Bradham was a key piece for that Eagles Super Bowl run because he was such a good instinctive cover linebacker and did enough as a run defender to coexist with Hicks there, who's a good run defender. But yeah, I like that complement as a 1-2 punch. And then Akeem Davis-Gether is that modern sub linebacker, weak side linebacker, half safety, half linebacker. Just, not a guy that you want playing between the tackles, but can be that modern coverage linebacker. So in theory, this group really has upside, but they just haven't been able to get these guys to step up, especially look at Jermaine Pratt. Now, Logan Wilson, I think, and Davis Gaither, by the way, in year 2, there is upside with this linebacking group that I didn't really say about the pass rush group. So there's a lot of aspects I like here. We got to see it, man. We got to see these guys develop, and I wouldn't say that the Bengals have given us the benefit of the doubt as far as developing linebackers. The depth, you have Marcus Bailey, who was really good at Purdue, but has had a hard time staying healthy. Jordan Evans, just a depth piece, decent athlete, fine, can step in and really play any of the linebacker spots that you need if you get injuries. Joe Bacci, good run defender coming out of Michigan State, but not much of a coverage player. So yeah, it's a young group with physical upside that everyone's skill set really plays off each other in a nice way. I like how they've constructed the group. It's just a matter of developing these guys and exceeding that 27th ranking, which I do think is possible, certainly. I do kind of like all 3 of those starters. And then the secondary, which I actually think is a really underrated group for the Bengals, kind of getting 3 new starters at corner. Not kind of, literally getting 3 new starters at corner. As Chidobe Awuzie is going to be the free agent signing, definitely a downgrade from William Jackson. Trey Waynes coming back from injury, getting his first playing time for the Bengals after signing a big free agent contract in 2019. And then they steal Mike Hilton from the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the premium slot corners in the league. So you have now a revamped secondary. Obviously, you don't like losing William Jackson, but I still think this is a better group than what they had last year, where it was William Jackson and then, really nobody else other than Darius Phillips, who had some good moments. But yeah, I actually kind of like this group in an underrated way. Chidobe Awuzie had a difficult time playing for that Cowboys defense. But, cornerbacks forgetting how to play football when Mike McCarthy is your head coach is a tradition as old as time. So hoping he can respond, and he has upside. I like Chidobe Awuzie. I just had a really rough year last year, so you hope he can bounce back. Trey Waynes kind of is what he is, straight line speed threat, very similar to Eric Stokes coming out of the draft this year, just kind of a guy that doesn't really have the ability to change gears and can struggle on when assigned on more quick route runner types, like your Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams types, but has the straight line speed to run with dudes. If they use him in the correct matchups where he's really matching up on speed alone, he can be a good corner. Just you see a lot of inconsistency in his game because I think he's a very matchup dependent style of corner. But then Mike Hilton, all-around outstanding slot corner. He is the prototype. He's like, 5'10". He has quickness. He has zone instincts. He has ball skills. He's physical against the run. He's going to bring a new element to this secondary. Mackenzie Alexander had the physical side, but he didn't have the coverage side that Mike Hilton brought to the table. And then Darius Phillips is underrated as well. A guy that has never really been a full-on starter, though he got plenty of opportunities to start last year. And again here, he's going to be more that fourth corner, but has played in a lot of different spots, whether it's outside or slot corner. I can't draw up a much more perfect fourth corner because he's not a guy that's going to demand like a super big contract or anything. He's someone they can keep around here probably and just plug him in wherever you have injuries, and he's quality depth. Instinctive playmaker with good athleticism, underrated player there, Darius Phillips. And they even brought in Eli Apple as a fifth corner. Eli Apple's not good, but as a fifth corner, he's got a ton of experience and athleticism. So they run 5 deep at corner, which how often do I say on this channel that it's important and underrated to have depth at corner, which they certainly have. Even Tony Brown has some speed and experience. If he gets on the field, that's not ideal, but a great special teamer with the speed to cover on kicks. He'll come into play in a little bit when we talk about the special teams here. And I think that's probably all they keep here. They've got some young players there, but no one I'm all that familiar with that I can break down. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see if any of those guys even make the team. And then, of course, Jesse Bates, maybe the pinnacle of underrated players in the NFL. To me, certainly the best free safety in the NFL. A lot of safety talk going on Twitter over the last week. So fitting that the Bengals deep dive came up here. Always kind of silly to me to compare, say, Jesse Bates to, Derwin James or Budda Baker. They play different positions. Jesse Bates is a true free safety. That single high ball hawking type. Now, he does everything else very well, but, you don't really see Jamal Adams or Budda Baker play the same role that Jesse Bates does. So it's kind of weird to compare them. But stacking Jesse Bates up against Minkah Fitzpatrick, Kevin Byard, Eddie Jackson, some of the more true free safety types, to me he has the best IQ at the position. He has the most versatility out of those guys because we have now seen him come down and cover tight ends in man coverage. We saw him do well against a Mark Andrews, for example. He's got the range as well. Maybe not quite as fast as Minkah Fitzpatrick, but he is in the same category as far as elite, rangy, free safeties. And a true do-it-all safety was almost inarguably the best safety in 2020. So the pinnacle of underrated players. I'm super high on Jesse Bates. This dude deserves the absolute bag from the Bengals. I hope they do not let him go like they did some of these other players, because honestly, with him patrolling the top for this good group of corners, this is an underrated secondary with top 10 secondary potential. They've got good depth behind him as well, really good veteran talent. But 2 guys coming up from the NFC South. Von Bell came up last year and really took that job from the long-term veteran Sean Williams and played it very well. Your typical strong safety, decent in man coverage, more of a short area zone type of guy. They do like split safety looks, but we saw them certainly get away from that here in Cincinnati, running a lot of cover 3 and cover 1. I would say Von Bell is actually a big part of that because you don't really want him coming up high and playing a lot of cover 4, for example. So just an interesting observation there because this is sort of the Mike Zimmer style defense. And Zimmer does like to mix in a decent amount of cover 4, which we didn't really see so much last year. A lot more single high. But part of that is you have Jesse Bates, and you can run single high. So interesting combination there of safeties. Always good to see, though, defensive coordinator adjusting their scheme to the player's skill set, which I think is very fair to say that Lou Anarumo is doing here based on the safety talent. And then Ricardo Allen coming in to be the third safety here. My goodness, what a great signing to get him for cheap to really be that third safety. He can allow this team to go more cover 4, which will be something to monitor if Anarumo wants to get back to some of those split safety looks. Maybe we see Ricardo Allen as the high safety next to Jesse Bates, and then Von Bell maybe coming in as more of a sub-linebacker type. So it gives you versatility in the secondary, which is what the Mike Zimmer roots is all about. And you have 7 really good defensive backs that we're looking at here for this secondary. The safety depth after those guys, really not worth noting. Brandon Wilson, a phenomenal special teamer, but not much of a safety. Again, overall, a very underrated secondary, in my opinion. I like a lot of the things they did here, and they're going to rank 13th in the league, helping out this overall defensive ranking that is still going to come in 26th in the league. But given the fact that they have the 29th ranked pass rush and a so-so group of linebackers and a defensive coaching staff that really has left a lot to be desired with Lou Anarumo, I think a defense that can survive, and I just don't see it being a high upside defense, but I think they did a good job to increase the floor of this defense, whether it's with the run defense or improving the coverage unit. It was one of the worst defenses in the league last year, and I expect some improvement, but they just have a long way to go, which I don't think is going to get a lot of pushback in saying that. The home field here also is a major question mark. You've got the outdoor factor. You have, a team that if they're losing, the fans just aren't as loud. It's pretty simple. Those that have been to NFL games kind of get how it works. So nothing against you Bengals fans. I hope you show up and shatter this 28th ranking, but they are going to rank pretty low for the home field advantage heading into the season. The scheme is going to be listed here as a 4-3 multiple defense. They're at the core a 4-3 unit, but they will mix in some 3-4 looks just as pretty much every team in the league does. Could get more versatile there with like a Joseph Asai now on the team, as well as that kind of hybrid edge type of outside linebacker, a little more capable of dropping into coverage than like a Hendrickson or Sam Hubbard, and also multiple in their coverages as well. Lou Anarumo, clearly a lot of like Mike Zimmer ties with Cincinnati. There's always been a strong connection. Obviously Zimmer originally from Cincinnati, but it feels like they've been kind of bouncing off each other for a long time, and it's no different here. As we discussed with the secondary, they actually ran a lot of cover 1 and cover 3, so adjusting to their personnel a little bit. But with, say, Ricardo Allen coming in, do we see more quarters and cover 6 influences that Mike Zimmer always likes to have a healthy balance of really all the different coverages to keep offenses on their heels. So maybe getting back to that a little bit this year. A recap of the team as a whole. Again, 17th for offense, 26th for defense. The special teams ranking is going to be tied for 19th. Their kicking game is actually pretty suspect. They drafted Evan McPherson in the 5th round. We'll see what he can bring as a rookie. Could definitely help this be actually a top 10 special teams, though, because I would say they have a bottom 5 kicking game between punter and kicker, but it's not just about that. They actually have an outstanding coverage unit. They graded out really well for the rest of the special teams as far as cover guys and all of the tackling metrics and all that stuff you look at for special teams. Those are unstable metrics, but they were in the top 5 for a lot of that stuff last year, so they do a good job coaching these special teams. I just think the talent as far as the kicking game is going to be a little bit lacking depending on how the rookie looks. And the culture as a whole, towards the bottom, ranking 27th. It just comes back to the fact that this has not been a winning culture, and Zach Taylor having a lot of question marks. I think Joe Burrow does add something to the culture here, and the same thing that we talked about, like the Tom Brady comparisons. He brings a little bit of that leadership that you look for. But as far as this team earning the benefit of the doubt, which is a big part of that culture ranking, they have a long way to go to prove that they can be a stable, good culture in the NFL. Next up, we have the strengths and weaknesses. So the strengths, I just straight up put Joe Burrow because I think his just optimism is contagious throughout the organization. I think his leadership and ability to be a good quarterback on the football field is kind of the resounding strength of this team. And maybe it's premature to say that, but I'm confident in saying it. And if you're watching this video, you probably are here for my opinion, and that's my opinion, is that he is one of the rising elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think that's going to show up in different ways throughout the season. The receivers is an obvious strength. Assuming Jamar Chase is what we all expect as a rookie, which I think is a pretty safe assumption, this is going to be in the conversation for the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. It's going to give defenses headaches, even if none of them are elite receivers. Having 3 guys that you really have to be worried about in Higgins, Boyd, and Chase is almost better than having like one elite guy and nobody else, in my opinion. And then they have a deep and experienced secondary that we really talked about, but I just think that plays into what Lou Anarumo is going to be comfortable with, being able to mix up the coverages with those Mike Zimmer ties. More, just experience and depth in the secondary is going to be healthy for this team. As far as the weaknesses, however, the offensive line is certainly a weakness. You really hope that it doesn't hold this team back in the same ways that it did last year, but I would say the outlook there is far from optimistic. You have an unproven offensive coaching staff. You would like to think Zach Taylor can get this scheme rolling and be the next Shanahan offense that's populated throughout the league, but in the first 2 years, it just hasn't happened. And then you have the pass rush being a major detractor from this defense. I don't think opposing offensive lines are going to sweat much looking at this pass rush coming at them the other way. So that should hold this team back. And then as we're going to transition here, their final weakness is a brutal schedule. Absolutely brutal. And you start with 3 of the best pass rushes in the NFL. I mean, you want to talk about football being a matchup game, especially with line play. This Bengals team is going to be very matchup dependent, and they're not playing a lot of bad pass rushes on this schedule. That's what's so rough here. So Minnesota, at Chicago, and at Pittsburgh. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. I have a hard time seeing them winning because I just think Joe Burrow is going to be running for his life, and it's going to be tough for them to get this thing started. I do have them beating Jacksonville, but then they have freaking Green Bay the next week. What a rough start to a schedule that this team is hoping to, hit the ground running and start building something here. I see them starting 1-4, then going 2-2 in their next stretch with 3 road games, though. So, it doesn't get easy there. Luckily, they don't have to fly too far, going to Detroit, Baltimore with the Jets. But then to wrap this up, having them finishing 2-6 because the second half of their schedule doesn't get any easier. I have them winning in Las Vegas, but then they have Pittsburgh, they have the Chargers, they have San Francisco, they have to go to Denver, they have Kansas City, and at Cleveland and Baltimore. What the hell? They got screwed, man. This schedule is brutal. I really wanted to come out here and say I'm high in the Bengals. They can win 8, 9, 10 games and get into the playoff picture, but I don't see it happening. Not with this schedule. A brutal draw for the Bengals, and it sucks, but it is what it is. So I have them going 5-12. I do have an optimistic outlook for this team. I do think Joe Burrow is going to be awesome, but I don't know if it's going to reflect in the win-loss record this year. So I'm going to say no bet because I'm not going to suggest betting against Joe Burrow this year, and I think there's going to be some upsets in there. But my goodness, man, I just can't look at this schedule and say the Bengals can go over 6.5 wins and get to 7 or 8. It's just really difficult to see for a kind of new revamped defense and a terrible offensive line. So sorry, Bengals fans, to hype you up and then shatter the expectations, but it is what it is. Let me know in the comments down below, everyone, what you think about this ranking. Where do you stand on Joe Burrow? Am I crazy for saying he could be a top 10 quarterback this year? Again, let me know in the comments down below. Hit that like button as well. Really helps me out. Make sure you subscribe. And we'll see you in a few days for my number 23 team. Peace out.